Drapes podcast. I'm your host, Expo Rich, and I'm here with Jessica Sibila. She's the Executive Director of the Exhibitor Advocate. And thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here, and it's amazing to be in a studio that's right on the show floor, right? With windows where we can see out. I love being able to be in the middle of it.
It is funny. I feel like we're in an aquarium, and people.
It's kind of fun though, right?
Yeah.
Like we get to look out, they get to look in.
Yeah, and I always love doing this on the show floor because like the energy, the buzz, like we hear it, we feel it, and this is what our ethos is. This is what we're all about. So so I started this some years ago because I wanted to talk to the people that were doing the stuff, and one of the things that we are always going, building and stuff. But then one of the biggest components and the people that carry the biggest lift and burden are the exhibitors.
Yeah.
And, they are fiscally carrying the way. They're buying the space, they're paying the services and offsetting all of the costs and things. So
that's right.
And that's why I thought it was important to have you on because, that's your the whole reason why you're
That's why we exist.
You advocate for the exhibitor.
That's right. I think for such a long time, the attendee was always seen as the primary audience in this industry, right? Yeah. If we bring the attendee, then the exhibitor has to come. And what we want to make sure the industry understands is that the exhibitor is an important stakeholder group, and we have to include them in the conversation, right? So they need to be seen as a stakeholder that is critical to making us all successful, and that is because of the financial impact that they have in this industry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I mean some shows have zero cost for attendees to go, so all of the money comes from the exhibitors and sponsors, and then you have some that are the exhibitors and sponsors are the foundational dollars before they start selling tickets. So it's a very important component, and obviously important to us as not just a general service contractor that works on the show floor overall organizing, but a huge part of our business is the custom exhibit side.
Yes.
So we work very intimately with exhibitors on trying to create their vision and work through the process with them. So
and it's so important that they have a good partner in that space, right? Because a lot of exhibitors don't understand what's happening in the industry, right? We see ourselves oftentimes as a part of the industry that we work in. I'm a part of healthcare, I'm a part of food and beverage industry, but we don't see ourselves as part of this industry, and so we don't know all the ins and outs of the general contractors, what the relationships are between GCs and the show organizer. We rely on our exhibit house partner to help us manage our presence here and make it successful for us.
The exhibitor advocate is like, it's funny because I've kind of been wearing that hat my whole career, where in terms of like I've been doing education constantly with customers, and for that specifically, like getting them to have an understanding of why the things are the way they are, the way that we have to have this well-oiled machine clicking like that, and how we can get them in and out, and what's the best way, and what. There's nothing I love more than an exhibitor that wants to know these things. How can they successfully have an event where they can go in and out and put their best foot forward and promote their brand, but at the same time there's like so many nuances that could be barriers or just obstacles to getting the job done. So it's great when we have exhibitors that are interested in learning what can I do to make this process easier and better, and who do I align myself with? So,
it's a relationship business, right? And that's no different for the exhibitor with their exhibit house. As an exhibitor, I was always calling my exhibit house, asking, how do we be more efficient? What's new? What's happening in the industry? How do I stand out, right? And when you have a good partner who can advise you on cost-efficient ways to achieve your objectives, that's a relationship that lasts for the long term. And so I think we see a lot of exhibitors looking for that level of support and partnership, especially as those folks may be newer to the industry.
Now, we look at, we talk about pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, it's like the big shakeout that happened, and scared a lot of people out. So now that it's more than ever we need more education, because now there's so many new people to the industry.
Yes.
You know, the veterans moved on, changed, you know, careers, and
Yes.
and the people that are now coming in green, you know, they need to learn all the stuff that the other people already learned. So
yeah, and there's new people on every side of the
Yeah.
industry, right?
Yeah.
So exhibitors are coming in new. They are blind to some of the rules and regulations,
Yeah.
right? We've got, labor force is struggling because we've lost a lot of
Yep.
the skilled labor that we had, right? So it's part of the reason why the Exhibitor Advocate has joined ECA's efforts on Capitol Hill to fight for workforce development initiatives, because I think it's important that exhibitors play a role in supporting the industry as a whole. And so helping support workforce development helps us just
Yeah.
as much as it helps this entire industry.
So I like to know people's origin story. How did you
Yeah.
end up in the seat you're in now? And I mean, you said you were an exhibitor prior to that. So
Yeah.
let's go back even a little further. How did you end up with your first position in the trade show industry?
Yeah, it's crazy. So I was working at a food retail outlet, and I was looking for my next gig. And somebody said, "Oh, you should sign on for this show management company. They're looking for folks that it was a publishing company. That's how it was introduced to me. Is why don't you work for the publishing company?" And I was kind of like, "What would I do with a publishing company? Like, I don't write and I don't
Not an
edit.
editor,
I'm not a graphic designer. Like, I don't understand." And she goes, "Well, they do trade shows, and you run events for the food business that I was working with." She said, "Why don't you, take a look at it?" So I got hired as an operations assistant, and I think my first trade show was 2 weeks after I got hired.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so going in
Yeah.
totally blind.
Sink or swim.
Right, exactly. But I will tell you, the first time that they took me to that show was in Anaheim. I was in the Anaheim Convention Center. I walked into that show floor before anything was really up and ready to go, right?
See the bare floor
It
before.
was magic. I get tingly just even thinking about
Yeah.
it, right? It was so incredible to see the energy on the show floor and all these different people coming together to build one massive show floor.
Yeah.
And GES was the GC on that show at the time. And they were the ones who taught me about rigging, and they taught me about how to manage sponsorships when a sponsor was unhappy with something that
Yeah.
was on the show floor. They taught me about marking a show floor and the pipe and drape. I mean, everything about it. And so that's where I started, was on the show management side. And then eventually moved into the exhibitor side and was there for 15 years between a number of different companies. But I spent 10 years at White Wave Foods, which is Horizon Organics, Silk Soy Milk, a number of other brands. Moved on, was part of an acquisition with Danone, which is
Okay.
Dannon Yogurt. Worked for them for 2 years, managing events and corporate branding, and it was a ride. It
Yeah.
was an amazing ride as an exhibitor. So in 2019, I ended up starting a consulting business so that I could manage events and support small to mid-sized businesses on events. And I told everybody about my new business in January of 2020.
Perfect time to launch
Perfect time.
for the industry.
It was
Yes.
amazing. So as that break happened, I had some time on my hands, and I had been meeting with this group of people for 10 years that was an offshoot of TSEA, the Trade Show Exhibitors Association. And we were meeting and talking about the challenges in the industry, helping each other out with, "Hey, I've got this guy who might help you. I know this resource, tell me about your challenges,
Yeah.
maybe we can help," kind of thing. And eventually, as we started talking about what happens after COVID, we realized that it would be the exhibitor that would bear the brunt of the financial burden
Yeah.
when we came back and people were trying to recoup revenue that had been lost.
Yeah.
So we felt like it was the right time to start an association for exhibitors to share those pain points, share those concerns, and do the same thing that we had been doing for each other, sharing resources and advice that would help us be more successful, more cost efficient.
You know what's interesting about that too is that what having the transparency of yes, this is going to be a financial burden that you guys get into, but people still want to be part of it. So as long as they can budget, as long as they can understand what all the costs are going to be, and I'm going to be less surprises and things, people are surprisingly okay pay to play.
That's right.
As long as they know what the cost going in.
Yeah, it's not all doom and gloom, right?
Yeah.
It's really important that we understand as an industry, exhibitors find trade shows valuable. They still do, even with the costs as high as they are. But they are telling us that the costs are too high when it comes to show services.
Right.
The Exhibitor Advocate, in partnership with Evolio, just put out some research last week that talks about this. Exhibitor sentiment is 88% of us are saying the cost is the number one issue for us, and it is the pure cost of show services. But the solutions that exhibitors are putting into place to deal with that rising cost issue is all hitting the show organizer, right? It's that they're reducing their size of their booth space, they're reducing the number of shows that they're going to, they're reducing sponsorship. And so it really takes the show organizer to negotiate on behalf of their exhibitors to address the rising cost issue and provide value for the cost that we're paying. When we do that and we do it well, then the cost doesn't become an issue anymore.
Right. Yeah, I like an example I like to give with that is that, like, when we know we're going to go to the Javits Center and we know we're going to pay a premium on labor, but the Javits labor is really good.
Yes.
So going in it's going to be more expensive, but you also are going to get what you're paying for and stuff. And if you benchmark it against other markets, sure, it's going to be considerably higher. But if you pay less in a different market and the labor is not up to par, then it's way more frustrating than paying a premium and getting a good job.
Yeah, that's right. That's
right. Any type of show could be similarly like, okay, we're going to have this. It's going to cost a lot of money, but you're going to get so much value out of this, and you're going to walk away with business. So
that's right.
So we definitely need to be better in the transparency side as a whole ecosystem.
Yeah. And the part of it is transparency on cost, but the other part is value around the data that we're getting. Yeah. A lot of exhibitors during COVID had the opportunity, or maybe were forced, into other marketing channels. Yeah. And as they explored those channels, they found that they were getting a lot of really great data from these other channels. Yeah. So they come back to a face-to-face environment, and now they're asking for the same level of data that they've gotten from other channels. Yeah. Now, for show organizers that can provide that data and are willing to go there, right? Which we absolutely think they should do.
Revealing the cards,
right? The thing that's different about trade shows is the face-to-face environment and the relationship building. So this is a completely unique channel that when you marry the face-to-face with the data, becomes an absolute must-go-to event and a critical part of your marketing mix. So it's important that show organizers start to think about data differently going forward, and how we share that data responsibly with our exhibitors, how our exhibitors use it responsibly, but we help match the objectives of both our exhibitors and our attendees.
Yeah, in the effort of let's say as the exhibitors are being more demanding of their ROI.
Yes.
One of the things that pushed us to go on board with the Zenith AI camera system. So we're actually doing it in our booth there. So we have a camera set up, and what it is it's capturing the data of what's going on in your booth. So it's not a video recording of who's there. It's who's there. It's going to tell you, male, female, over, under 40. It's going to tell you. But what I really love about it is it tells you sentiment.
Yes.
If people like what they see or they dislike what they see.
Yep.
So there's a real capture of what was the experience going on, what were the people thinking about this. And when I met those people a year ago, we talked to it, and that's why we signed on as a partnership, because one step further is having access to something is one thing, but being able to manage it, implement it, and then as an exhibitor say, here's your report on your booth, and here's your performance.
Yeah.
So we thought that was a very powerful thing. So that's why we integrated that into one of our suite of services. And now we're doing that. So that way people can walk away from that show knowing they got ROI from the on-site experience too. And one more data touch point. And, that's specifically that, knowing that people are reducing the shows that they're going to, they're spending less. Well, they're not just spending less because they want to save money. It's because the ROI.
Yeah.
If I don't get out of this what I think I'm getting, the next step is, how do you know what you did?
Yes.
You know, if they're just like, I felt like traffic wasn't this.
Yeah.
Well, how about we put numbers to it?
Yeah.
And in a relatively inexpensive manner, we can give you some real data about your specific booth.
Yes.
So I thought that was such a strong tool to then enforce that, you know, they can justify their being at the show, or justify it getting bigger.
Yeah.
You know, hey, we really did have more. What was our sales team doing if we had this much action? You know, things like that. So
well, and there's an efficiency there too,
Yeah.
right? Because as a partner bringing this tool to them, right now they can see which parts of my booth are the most effective.
Yeah.
And then lean into those areas,
Yeah,
right? So I
exactly.
think when you have different pieces of equipment in a booth and you're trying to determine what is the draw to bring people in and how is that working, and
yeah,
is my signage at the front of the booth or even the structure of my counters,
Right.
is it inviting or
Yeah,
not? Are
right.
people coming
Is it
in or
deflecting
not?
people? Yeah.
Right? Every industry segment is different.
Yep.
So, you know, I come from a food and beverage background. Where you set those counters
Yep.
with your sampling
Absolutely.
is critical to
Yeah.
your traffic flow, right?
Absolutely.
And so being able to look at a tool that tells me what happens
Yeah.
with that traffic flow, where people spend that
Yeah.
time, I can now be more efficient with my partner
Yeah.
to figure out how to do it
Yeah.
better.
What's interesting about that is, because it's real time, you could actually log in and say, look, our counter with our sampling, when it was on edge, the dwell time was way less. Let's bring it in 2 feet,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden we have dwell time, and now we have more capture from customers. So yeah,
And we change it at the show.
Yes,
Right.
it's really
so we
cool.
can
Yeah.
see the difference in day one versus day
Yep,
two.
absolutely.
We can show our leadership the ability to make those quick changes and
Yeah.
evolve as we need. What a
Yeah.
great partnership
Yeah.
for you guys to bring that resource to your
Yeah,
exhibitors.
we're really excited to roll that out with a bunch of our customers.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so what for 2025
Yeah.
has you excited? What's
my
the next
gosh.
steps? Like, what's the next thing?
Like I get so excited about this because we are entering our 3rd year in business.
Yeah.
And what we're so excited about this year is rolling out a lot more content, a lot more education, getting our members more connected to each other so that they really understand the community that they're a part of and feel like they have that connection, again, to share resources
Yeah.
and advice. So you're going to see a lot more educational seminars from us.
Nice.
There's a lot more discussion forums and opportunities for new members
Yeah.
to understand the ecosystem and learn from each other. You're going to see more research coming out from us. We have an incredible partnership with Evolio, and we'll be doing more research to share with the industry what's happening. And I'm also really excited about sharing education for show organizers in how they support exhibitors.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot that you're going to see from us in the next 12 months that will be really beneficial for our membership, but for the industry at large.
That's great. So actually, on that note, how can people find more information about the Exhibitor Advocate?
Yes, please go to exhibitoradvocacy.com. We really encourage everyone to become a member of the organization. It is free membership today. We will always have a free membership option. And the importance of that to us is always making sure that we have members who are providing a different voice from the industry, right? We want our GCs involved. We want our show organizers, our unions. We want every stakeholder group to be members so that we're getting a clear understanding of what's happening in the industry. So we encourage you to go to exhibitoradvocacy.com, click on the Join Us button,
But now
become
that
a member.
I know, I will. See, I
Yes.
didn't even know that you wanted.
Yes, we
GSC
do. We
partners
want
too.
you. We want
So-
everybody to be a member
Okay.
and share your experience. How do we make this industry
I
better?
will do it today.
Great.
So-
Love it.
Well, Jessica, thank you so much for being here. This was a great conversation, and it was great learning more about you.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.